Okay, so in our first video, we looked at how to take a topic, brainstorm so that you have three main points and you have information that you want to discuss in subpoints. In our second video, I briefly showed you how I organize my research. How, as I research online, I take information I think I might want to use, I copy and paste that information on a document, and I ensure that I have all the citation information required in order to properly cite that in APA format with my outline. I then color code each source so that I know exactly where I'm pulling my information from. So all of these things help get to the point where we're ready to start our outline. So if you kind of look here, what I have is a brief skeleton of what I know I want my speech to be like. So I know in every speech I have an introduction, and these are the required parts. So I'm going to go ahead and have that there. Now, one of the last things we do in developing our outline is to go back and write our introduction and conclusion. But it's helpful to go ahead and have everything outlined here for you, and you can go in and fill in the gaps as you're ready. So then I know what my first 3 points are. I went through the brainstorming process. I looked at what I wanted my first 3 points to be, so I know what they are. So I went ahead and outlined those. I have my first main point, my second main point, my third main point, and again, my conclusion, which I'll do that at the very end. So all main points are here and ready to go. So at this point, I'm ready to begin my outlining. So I have reviewed the information, I've reviewed my research, and I know what I want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about my first main point. Let's start with that. We will begin by discussing the pathway to becoming an educational diagnostician. So the very first thing we would talk about is your first degree that you need to earn. In order to become a diagnostician, educational diagnostician, one must earn a bachelor's degree. And then we can talk about, while a specific undergraduate major isn't a prerequisite, it would be beneficial to major in education, even more specifically, special education. In order to become an educational diagnostician, one must teach for a minimum. And then let's go to our research because I don't remember. So I have TEA requirements for being an educational diagnostician. It says an educational diagnostician is required to have a valid classroom teaching certificate and 3 years of classroom experience in a public or private school setting, accredited private school setting. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to copy it here, right here. And so because I'm leaving it in yellow, I'm going to take this away before I submit my outline. But because I'm leaving it in yellow, I know where to pull my resource from. Now, again, I'm going to take all the highlighting away before I submit it. This is just for me as I develop my outline to make sure I know where I found my information from. In order to become an educational diagnostician, so one must teach for a minimum of 3 years at a public or accredited private school, in addition to holding a valid classroom teaching certificate. In order to become an educational diagnostician, one must teach for a minimum, I'm going to say here, per Texas Education Agency. Okay, so that way I know where I found my information. I'm citing that it came from TEA, that is where that information is from. So that's my first subpoint. So if I've just talked about bachelor's degree, then now I can talk about master's degree. So I'm going to take this off. I'm pulling information from different sources here. None. And go back to, so additionally, an educational diagnostician must earn a master's degree, must hold, let's see, does that information specifically here? Yes. So we're back to our TEA source, must hold complete and approved certificate. So we have the teaching certificate. They must hold a master's degree from an accredited higher education program. So, and we're going to go ahead and put that back in yellow because we are using that. So we must hold a master's degree from an institution of higher education that is accredited by an accrediting agency as recognized by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So we'll go ahead. TEA, Texas Education Agency, also requires candidates complete a required educational diagnostician certification test. So again, that's more information I've received from TEA, taking that off here, and then additionally, indicates that an educational diagnostician must hold a master's degree. So again, it's telling me where that information is coming from. So this is taking us to the pathway to becoming an educational diagnostician, that you must earn a bachelor's degree. You don't have to have a specific undergraduate major, but it's beneficial to major in education or special education. You must also teach for a minimum of 3 years, and then you need to complete a master's degree, or a graduate certification from an institution of higher education that is accredited. And then after you've completed that, then you will take a certification test. So that's the basic pathway to becoming an educational diagnostician. Not over too much information. It's giving you the basic idea. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and look to see what I talked about. So again, so I didn't talk about coursework, and that's something that I want to go back and mention. So refer back to where you've brainstormed your main point, see what information you missed and maybe that you meant to talk about, but you didn't talk about. So I'm going to go back and talk a little bit more. I'm going to take off the highlighting because the information I'm sharing here is knowledge that I have. I completed this program. This is something that I'm familiar with. And so as I continue here, it's not citing anything specifically. As part of a graduate, as part of your graduate study, you will take a variety of courses in order to better assist you in performing requirements of the job. And then this is going to be, and I don't do this a lot, but I think I've told you in some cases it's okay. This is going to be kind of a list, something that I talk through, but for the purpose of the outline, there are times that it's okay to do a list and everything doesn't have to be in complete sentences. For the most part, everything is required to be in complete sentences, but sometimes a list makes sense. So I'm going to say you will have classes on specific disabilities. Actually, probably the first classes that you will take is on child development of some sort. Child development, specific disabilities, legal issues, and specific tests, test kits for cognitive testing, which that's IQ testing, and test kits for achievement testing. Okay, so this gives you an idea. I'll kind of talk through these. I'll probably go back and add more information with the test to further kind of expand on this main point, but this gives us a good idea. Again, for the most part, everything is in complete sentences. If it's appropriate and you need to list things, that can happen every now and then. So let's go down to the next point. And the second point that I have here is what a day in the life of an educational diagnostician looks like. So I'm going to go back to my research, and there's literally information that I took from a source that talks about a day in a life. And then one thing it talks about is your workload. So it depends on the number of students that you have. You may have to travel. You're going to do formal assessments. You're going to observe students. You're going to have meetings. You're going to have paperwork where you're developing IEPs. So we're going to kind of go back and talk about some of those things in the outline. A major part of an educational diagnostician's job is working with a committee to develop a student's IEP, which means individual educational plan. And then I'll talk about IEP meetings. I'll kind of go out and explain what that is, an IEP meeting. An IEP meeting is required for each student that is in special education, that receives special education services. I'm going to go ahead and change that to an annual IEP meeting is required services. IEP meetings require for the educational diagnostician to work on paperwork before, during, and after the meeting in order to ensure that each student's IEP is accurate and implemented thoroughly. Okay, so I'm kind of talking through an ARD, an IEP meeting. A next part is assessment. Educational diagnosticians are also responsible for assessing or evaluating students with or that are suspected in having a specific learning disability, in addition to other disabilities. This entails a thorough review of a student's educational history, a classroom observation or multiple observations, formal evaluation with the student consisting of both cognitive and academic achievement testing, reviewing and analyzing all evaluation information, in an effort to determine if there is a presence of a specific learning disability. Okay, so this gives you an idea how I begin to talk through and begin to develop my outlines. So I'm going to go through the first 2 points here. I went through the first 2 points here for you. I will complete this outline. I'll have this available for you online. The next part of our video, which will be part 4, I'm going to walk you through the process of developing an APA Works Cited page that you will attach at the end of your outline. So I hope this tells you, I know it's probably boring to watch and you've seen a multitude of typos, but I hope this gives you an idea of how I begin to develop an outline, how I go back and forth to what did I say I wanted to talk about, what does my information tell me, what do I have knowledge of already that I can go ahead and fill in some gaps, and then go in and add some research as I begin to really fill out my outline. But I hope this gives you an idea of how you can kind of work out and type out your main points, your subpoints, your details. Again, the last things that you'll do is your conclusion and introduction. I'll have those completed in the final outline I have available for you on Canvas.